secret lotus of consciousness from the very heart of God, descend into the force field of each one's consciousness with thy precious anointing of the Spirit most holy and universal. Behold the light from within. Behold the light from without, the dazzling effulgence of God that fills the vessel of consciousness and transmutes identity. I, Serapis, speak unto you of the fire of consciousness, because it is active and illumining, because it is the grace which God places momentarily, hourly, and forever within the consciousness, within the force field, within the chalice of individuality, and simultaneously in the heart of the world and the chain of worlds without end. What is this contribution of deity that descends? This that is the flower of the lotus, of divinity, of divine consciousness. It is like a flame flower. It holds within its chalice purity, purity and blessedness, blessedness in the light of the divine mind, in the light of God that shines abroad in and through the heart of the world, wherever mankind are, in their individual hearts. The nearness of God, the awareness of God is enhanced by the descent of this light. Fairest flower, flaming radiance, greatest contribution to mankind's delight, to mankind's unfoldment of consciousness, that draws the skeins of the universe into oneness, that summons the vastness of the eye of the mind to reach out, to penetrate, and to know, even if for the first time, the great cosmic identity we call a beingness, beingness, the awareness of all that the Father is, the desire to fan the flames of life and bring to embodied mankind a renewal of spirit and a right mind. The descent of the holy lotus from on high is a flow of contributing worth, calling to all to recognize that from the foundation of beginningness, the glory of God has shone forth within the heart of man. What has drawn the curtains then upon mankind's knowing but his failure to apprehend, his failure to sing the song of life, that is the song of the flame, that is the name of God as identity. Lo, I am, for lo, God is. Because he foreknew the destiny of mankind, he placed that destiny in the Christic seed. And by the regeneration of that seed within the consciousness, the fairest flowers of heaven unfold and adorn the identity until that identity is able to drink in the sweet and precious aroma of the heart of the divine flower and contribute then to its flowing worth. For all life flows with the divine Tao. The release of the Holy Spirit into the consciousness as ascendant. For as long as the consciousness descends, it vivifies and revivifies in unfortunate episodes the consciousness of the earthy. But when mankind summon out of the heart of the flame their true identity, they vest their consciousness with that identity, and they kindle once again the ancient building of the divine pyramid. Stone upon stone, foursquare as the holy city, foundation rising toward the sun of life, mankind grow as he nears the top of the great expanding pyramid of life. Fewer are the stones, for the merge is the easement of all souls. The merge that crushes out the selfish urges of mankind and summons the universal to the point where the kindling flame places the capstone of freedom upon the pyramid of both individual and collective life. Life is God. Life is the flame. Life is identity. Superimposed upon the form of flesh, it transmutes that identity, raises it, and glorifies it with the glory of the light. When the shining radiance of the capstone is seen by mankind, the eye of God that beholds all good intensifies all good within the individual monadic expression of God, and all become one with the great central beat of life, the harmony of the spheres, and the outpicturing of those ribbons of cosmic light that travel as emissaries of divine grace throughout cosmos. For the connecting streamers and ribbons of light that connect planetary bodies and universes without end connect also hearts and all lives until the song of life is established firmly within the podium of individuality, and nothing, I say, nothing can distract such an individual from his determination to express forever the fervor of the flame and the grace that is the Lord. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, and the beauteous harmony of the seraphic hosts is an experience never to be forgotten. When individuals understand the great calling of life that comes from within the king's chamber of the pyramid and emanates throughout the atomic structure until all is made pure light, they behold in the individual and the collective the summoning of that perfection from within out. Thus, the drippings of the heart of God, the drops of life that are the divine fervor, supply the oil for the anointing of the capstone and the fire of that pyramid of life that of old blazed forth the intensifying of cosmic grace. But some men have never experienced this fire. They have never experienced now in their emotional body or in their minds any degree of understanding of our level of consciousness. How then, you say, can we expect them to realize it? Let me tell you that once they engage the teeth of their consciousness in this divine experience, it will kindle and rekindle those episodes of universal grace that have provided fuel for all constructive endeavors in life, and I am sorry to say, for those which were not constructive. Let men understand then that whereas divine energy, all divine energy emanates from God, the correct use of that energy is the individual determination of the individual mind and consciousness. So do men come to understand the will. But the will emanation may itself seek change and find it. For each of us at one time or another in our own novitiate were forced by recognition and not by action to submit willingly, gladly to the passions of God and to submit ourselves to the divine pinions that raised us up in consciousness to that level of wholesomeness where the divine plan became an engraved part of our awareness. We were unable then to submit to the manifestations of the carnal mind, for these were inferior to us, and we could not bear them. So gross did this come at one point in our own spiritual evolution that we shut ourselves apart from the world, and the brotherhood formulated more and more its hidden temples in various recesses of the world, in many cases even building them through the use of the power of Shiva. Let me say to you then that the power of the one God, the monotheistic God, is the power of one Spirit, and one Spirit unto wholeness, one Spirit unto grace, and even one Spirit unto necessary destructivity. For it has proven necessary throughout the centuries and the millenniums to from time to time, and even in the span of a year or an hour, to tear down that abomination of desolation standing in the holy place where it ought not, and to see to it that men reestablish themselves at the center of Christ's awareness. For then, only then, were the fires of the sun able to shine forth their resplendent virtue unto the mind. And as I am speaking to you, I am fully aware of the fact that some, by reason of their own earthly densities, do not have the necessary capacities to fully appreciate that which I am speaking about. But shall I fail, then, to expand and expound upon this subject to those who do? I think not, for aspiration will draw men up the ladder of life. And I cannot honestly say that we have ever been successful in those experiences of regret for those brothers and sisters supposedly of the light who lagged behind and desired to exhibit one more experience of human nonsense. Verily, they have their reward. But I say unto you tonight, and through the centuries, by the self-same Spirit, that a summoning of awareness by you individually, and a dedication to a divine principle that will free you from the dregs of earth experiences and that level of harshness which mankind exhibit toward one another, will ultimately bring about an awareness of peace and Christ's joy that will indeed, as has been written, cause each individual to rejoice more over one so-called sinner who has come to repentance and acknowledgement of the great boons of life than over 99 who are already the just. For behold, mankind must understand that the all-encompassing grace and radiance of the light and the law bequeathed to them from the beginning is the immortal activity of God and Christ, for which they ever ought to be grateful. They do not need, if they have the divinity of Christ and of God, to be concerned about their own self-righteousness, but rather to be concerned that they acknowledge the divinity already implanted within them. How fragile are those concepts based upon human opinions concerning self or others? For so often they are utterly wrong. For God, who searches the hearts, is able to cognize on the instant by his wondrous mind and love whatever is acting in individual consciousness. Think you then that individuals can fool the law or God? For God is law and cannot be fooled. He will both reward those who are indeed the righteous, who shine forth as the Son of God in the Father's kingdom, and he will also certainly bring about the return of that misshapen karma upon those individuals who find that their bodies wear the imprint of their vile thoughts and their impurities as well as their impieties. I cannot then summon out of the great mercy of God that form of eternal mercy which will never recognize the need for mankind to be serious about the business of the ascension. Individuals sometimes think that I am a hard taskmaster. Well, let me ask you this question. Would you rather endure the smut of centuries more of human discomfiture, or would you rather have your own freedom? The question that I put to you is put to you squarely. And if you are sincere in your expectations, you will certainly give of your own heart's identity freely unto God for molding and remolding until such a time as the joy of God flows in the cup of life and runneth over with joy unto all people. I am Serapis. Those that I labor with are those that are of the seraphic host. And I work for the glorification and the intensification of the divine consciousness in its higher realms of awareness in the individual and in every individual. I cannot turn my attention upon those who are concerned with mere tatting. I cannot turn my attention unto those who are concerned with the mere games of life. I cannot turn my attention to those who are involved solely in the business of man without recognition of the business of God. The ancient statement of the young Jesus, I must be about my Father's business, rings throughout the ages and brings about the intensification of that fervor of soul which emanates from the Godhead. Lo, oh, hear ye seraphic bands, let these souls then with responsive ears hear the great cosmic melodies of the flame, and in their inner awareness of that flame of joy, let them see the turning worlds as worlds of fire from the heart of God, ensouling and providing a platform for countless billions of lives to actually be nurtured and grow in the grace of God until, as expanding space goes forth into the foreverness of God, at last each individual creation will find itself the God of some universe, responsible for the evolving life waves there, that all may be faced with the opportunity to become not only God in consciousness, but God in responsibility. And if somehow or other what I am speaking of tonight seems to you to be a mere fantasy of the human mind, think again, for God is infinite, and the expanding space that has so puzzled your scientists is simply an expansion of the Grund into the Ungrund. Let all understand then that that which is created can expand into that which is the uncreated, and in the foreverness of God, expanding life as opportunity will reach the foreverness of each individual. For infinity and infinity shores are in your consciousness now, and assert themselves as the great pressure of life, that is the crest of the wave thereof, which wave goes out and in its outgoing brings back in the return to that bourne of God, the heart of utmost devotion, overflowing as a fountain and filling the world and all things with the wholeness of God. His is a voice that shall never be stilled. His is a consciousness ever God-willed. His is the presence of life upon all. His is reality. This I do call forth, as Jesus called forth Lazarus out of the tombs of life. So do I tonight call forth the resurrected Christ consciousness in all of you. Let it be. Let the reality of that come forth and live henceforth in that awareness. So shall all men that come in contact with you feel that overpowering presence, that is the presence of life that beats both your heart and theirs, until the family of individuals throughout the planet shall come to know at last that the ancient summoning is the summoning now made manifest, that the past, the present, and the future emerge into one magnificent outpouring of cosmic will, a will that states, "Lo, I will." For when individuals feel the God response from within the flame within their own heart to the flame within the heart of the universe, there is established that which can never be broken, a connecting cord of divine love and universal comprehension, which shall invest all with the wisdom, the will, and the intelligence of God to overcome and to push back the darkness that presently engulfs the world. Then will light come forth and the song of God fill all hearts. Then will the power of his pressure and his presence fill all minds. Then will come the kingdom of heaven into manifestation, and the great white brotherhood assert its glorious light before all mankind. And darkness shall be no more, for the Lamb, the purity symbol, shall be the light of that city. And the foursquare city shall mean that he has summoned from the north, from the east, from the west, and from the south all the kings of those areas and all those who belong to those kingdoms. Earth, air, fire, and water in perfect balance within the bodies of mankind, in flooding the consciousness with renewal, shall sustain that renewal for all ages. And the glory of all kingdoms, of all peoples, of all kindreds, and of all tongues shall become one, even as it is now one. I, Serapis, say to the great sealer of the temple invisible, wilt thou then place thy seal upon the forehead of all who can accept now that which we declare? And wilt thou place thy seal upon the heart of all who can accept in their feeling world the great truth of God and the reality of his foreverness? So shall triumph rise in what we may call the outer court of the temple. And behold, we shall draw into the inner holy of holies, to the sacred votive flame that does stand before us, all mankind, that they may rejoice in that one flame, and love more their merging with that flame than they have ever loved their life before. So they loved not their lives unto the death. And the anointing of the Holy Spirit shall establish itself upon all, a voice speaking from the void as in the wilderness, a voice summoning the hearts of men and summoning them to the testing. For lo, God shall divide hearts, and his justice and his mercy shall indeed assert itself before them, and all men shall be rightly judged by he who is Lord of lords and God of gods, the beginning and the end of each consciousness, the beginning and the end of each world, the beginning and the end of each individual. Will you then, through merging with his consciousness, find your immortality, precious fountain, the water of life, that he who drinks of shall never thirst? Behold, the power and the glory of God has been revealed in part in this our statement concerning the votive flame within the heart. The great white brotherhood summons, the living God summons, as of old, the command and the commanding voice that spake unto Moses, I am that I am, Nuk Panuk, will say then to all, in the affirmative sense, Nam. Selah, lo, thy light has come, and thy light is expanded in the world. O beloved people, understand that Jerusalem is the crossroads of the heart of the world. Understand that here, in an aura of sanctity, where the patriarchs have long ago dwelled, there still exists those foundation walls of human barriers to the heart of God. For mankind do not understand still the need to shed doubt and fear, to surround themselves with a direct sense of the beauty of holiness and the altar of God. I stand here then in this spot and am able once again to look out over this city and to behold all that has occurred here since 2,000 years ago. O heart of mankind, thou art weighed in the balances, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God indeed. Yet all should understand that they are able to succeed in the grand adventure of becoming one with God and asserting their independence from those matrices of human thought which have held them bound for so long. Behold the banner of freedom in the cross of realization. Is it not true that the horizontal bar of that cross signifies the realm of materiality, the world of form and human density, And is it not true that the vertical bar is actually a ray of beautiful light coming down from on high and crossing the bar of materiality, of form, and of man's consciousness of separation, and imbuing him with a realization, if he will accept it, of the great power of the resurrection flame? Let men then understand with ease the natural expression of the kingdom of heaven from within themselves. For there beauty flourishes in the heart, when the heart is free from fear and doubt, and those negative matrices of thought and feeling which create darkness upon the screen of the mind and cause mankind to be blind to the great descending light of 10,000 suns, which light expresses itself in all who will give themselves to the Holy Spirit in the fullness of that commitment unto God, which places the life plan and unfoldment of their identity in His hands, knowing that as He cares for the birds of the air, so will He indeed care for all. For the Spirit of His majesty is humble, beating life into all hearts, that life should not only move the elements of their being and the screen of their thoughts and mind, of their feelings, into better realms, but also should shew forth mercy unto those who fear Him, unto all generations, that they may understand that born out of that reverence that is the fear of God becomes the fear as love. Do you understand then why the statement was made? Perfect love casts out all fear. And yet man should understand that fear which has torment is not referred to when I speak of the fear of the Lord. For the fear of the Lord is different than those human fears and doubts which mankind are from time to time embroiled in. Let all men that hear my voice, that are my sheep, understand the perfection of the law. The law is not blind. The law has never been blind, nor never will be. For the law is one aspect of divinity. It is the ensoulment of mankind by the light of the Holy Spirit, as it manifests upon the screen of the mind of the individual, reflecting there those hieroglyphs of divine identity that codify man's conduct and relationship with other parts of life. Mankind, by their cruelty, often alienate from themselves their own contact with the divinity and life that beats their heart. I say then to all, ye who come unto me, that ye may find rest for your souls, magnify the Lord. Selah, it is done. Magnify the Lord, and understand that all life is one. For all life comes forth from a central sun of perfection, wisdom, intelligence, and love. The love and the expression of God is given unto mankind, that they may understand who and what they are. Oftentimes, mankind do not understand that we are able to speak today in all verity just as easily as through the ancient prophets, do not actually permit themselves to accept our words simply because they come through a human instrument. What a pity that individuals will thus cut themselves off from a greater range of our expression. For whenever there is a dampening of fear and doubt, even through one person in our vicinity, it carries karmic weight and responsibility back to that individual, which indeed would cause that one to tremble if they knew. For lo, is heaven not? Heaven is. And if heaven is heaven limited? I think not. But what is limited in man is his ability to comprehend, his refusal to see the plan of life unfolding so beautifully for all. For this is what is happening in the world. Albeit darkness may appear to rule momentarily and in the hearts of the multitudes, I tell you of a truth that one day there will be a great stirring in the heart of the earth. There will be a great stirring in individual hearts, and many shall come to know me. And then with the passing of the years, truly thou shalt see that those many that shall come to know me shall bring yet still others, and they shall build a temple upon this earth and in their hearts, that shall exert its magnificent influences and spiritual culture into their hearts, and we will restore all things into the beauty and perfection of the divine estate. Know ye not that the kingdom of heaven is intended to appear upon this earth? Think you that the earth is but an experiment of dark individuals, that they shall possess the earth? I tell you, nay, for the sons of darkness shall indeed be cast as the Pharaoh and his rider into the sea, and behold, a new victory shall appear, and behold, a new freedom shall appear in the deserts of mankind's barrenness. For lo, and Selah, they have thought that they would do right, and the right that they have done has brought forth darkness and crying, and there has been moaning upon the bar of life, that mankind behold and see sorrow and darkness, when light and life and love have never ceased to express, when beauty and perfection has never ceased to vest mankind with greater peace of mind and joy and kindness and the expression of that infinite peace which I am. Lo, that which I am is that which thou art. Is this not true? For behold, mankind is that which the Spirit searches for and finds within their heart. True it is that mankind are blind. True it is that in their outer expression they have failed in the eyes of their fellow men, in the eyes of their peers, to justify their spiritual position. Bear in mind that it was necessary that men in the time in which I was crucified should betray me, because they were not able to see any difference in my face than in all men who dwelled in Jerusalem. Do you not understand, then, that the servant is not greater than his Lord? Do not expect that men will recognize you, that they will see the good in you no matter what you do. For once, the demon of prejudice and pride occupies the mind of man, he is not able to see clearly, but sees through the eyes of those demoniac forces which ought to be cast out and cast down. For the time has come when the demons shall indeed tremble at thy voice, because thou speakest my word. Behold, the demons will tremble, and they will be cast out. For just as many cast out demons in my name, who are not necessarily of me, so today many will triumph over darkness and win in the battle between the sons of light and darkness. Think you that Belial and all the forces of darkness that are rampant today in the world, and souling the viciousness of the music of the world in some of its manifestations, are going to cease their activity in these latter days of bringing mankind into a spirit of bondage and a house of bondage? I tell you, nay. For they have waxed worse and worse, and will continue to do so until for many they shall be exposed. For harm shall come unto mankind, and deafness of ear. And behold, you shall see that many shall perish at an early age, because they have violated their centers with dangerous drugs, and darkness is over their mind. But I tell you that those who turn to me, and to the expression of my love unto the family of nations, shall find that I have come again, not only in a physical manner, but also within their souls, that their souls may breathe that freedom of knowledge and expression, which is the fullness of my love unto the family of nations. Unless this be so, unless light expand its nature, unless mankind feel this sense of freedom and this reality, they will find little in life to amuse them except the renewal of their worldly vibrations in those little temporary episodes of pleasure which give them temporary happiness. But lo, the things of the Spirit are coming forth, and mankind will understand in the new culture of my Spirit and of the Spirit of all the apostles and prophets, of all the teachers and those emissaries of light from the great central sun, that their life too is a mission, that they must not know defeat, that they must not allow themselves to be trampled upon, but shall ever assert with full faith their own God victory over life and its environs. For mankind today are not free from the rituals of the crucifixion of their own individual selves by the spirit of the world and the world's thought. For unbelief is a crucifixion emanation. It is a scourging which mankind experience. It is a great viciousness in the world which denies God. And I have already said that those who deny me before men, I will deny them before my Father which is in heaven. Lo and Selah, I say unto you all, the house of holiness ought to be revived in mankind, and the veil in the temple of man's life ought to be dissolved by the Spirit of perfection and the flame of the Ark of the Covenant. Lo and behold, I have made my covenant with all life upon this planetary body. My chosen people are also the Gentiles as well as the Jews. To Jew and Greek comes forth my word, to all men, Parthians and Medes. I say then, let my spirit be blessed and glorified, for my spirit is thine. I have given myself to the world, and I have given myself to countless individuals in the world, and I have given myself to the stars, and I have given myself to the west wind, and the wind out of the east, and I have given myself to the lightning, and I have given myself unto the rain, And I have given myself to the thunder, and behold, the thunder from Zion shall be heard in the world, and all lands shall come to see and know that the house of the Lord must be rebuilded. They shall come to know that the building of that house is both spiritual and material, and they shall see that each abomination of desolation standing in the holy place where it ought not must be removed, and that the perfection of the winds of heaven must come forth, that the fan that is in my hand must purge my floor, that life must express that beauty and perfection which shall bring to all the light of life and the hope of reality. But, beloved hearts, I tell you, it shall not be accomplished without struggle, for the karmic weight of the world is very great, and the weight of sins that rests upon human hearts has desecrated the light of my presence and the light of God's presence everywhere. Yet mankind, through an act of mercy, continue to breathe and to draw breath. The breath of opportunity is abroad in the land, and behold, one day mankind shall understand the perfection which I am as dwelling within them, and when they understand it in its entirety, they will make a new heaven and a new earth, for the former things shall be passed away. I have said, behold, I make all things new, and it is so. Behold, I make all things new, but I make them new as mankind invoke from the heart of God a return of those matrices that are the old matrices of perfection, that stand from the beginning, that stand from the source, the perfection of life that has extended its rays of compassion and beauty, its rays of perfection, down the whole historical streaming light that goes forth from the beginning unto the ending. Behold, I am Alpha and Omega. I am the beginning and the ending. I am the Spirit that has spoken in the churches, and I speak again in the temple of all lives. Behold, I am the Christ. I am He. I am He whose vesture, dipped in blood, stands today to show mankind that the purification of their life is in my hands, is in the hands of their holy Christ self, is in the hands of that emanation of light that from the beginning streamed forth, the Christos, the life ray, the perfection that is the fountain of purification to the whole world, that none should be empty-handed, that all should be laden with the gifts of abundant life. For lo, the whole drama, the whole ritual of existence is that mankind should indeed find that spirit of perfection, which is God, that will right you all. This is the meaning of ritual. It is the meaning of all being rectified. That which is crooked should be made straight. That which is turned away from the light should turn to the light. And all things should indeed become the perfection which God ordained from the beginning. I am the light of the world, and the light that I am is thy light, even as it is the light of God that never fails. Lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the age. Lo, here in Jerusalem, we shall kindle a sacred fire this night that shall actually amplify all of the efforts that have ever been made by any of the apostles, by any of the prophets, by any of the teachers, by any individual, by any mother's heart, by any father's heart, by any brother's heart, by any holy emanation of my flame. We shall amplify it, and we shall kindle in the community of nations a light that is the light of 10,000 suns, and it shall radiate forth into the heart of the earth, and it shall come to pass that sensitive men everywhere shall pick up this vibration, this activity of joy, and the cup of life shall overflow, and the abundant life shall be made manifest, and mankind shall understand those covenants which I made with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob, those covenants which I have made also with others along the spiritual path. For I have dwelled in the secret places, saith the Most High, And behold, in those secret places, the power of God is pouring forth its emanation through myriad hearts. We have this day communicated our covenant to many who have in days of old served life. In the name of Melchizedek, in the name of Enoch, the seventh from Adam, I say that the flame of the Ancient of Days is once again rekindled in a new and beautiful fashion upon this planet. And behold, my light shall go forth, and the family of nations shall receive it, and many hearts shall be troubled because of it. But I assure you, once it is accepted, and it fulfills the mandates of the kingdom of heaven upon this earth, then mankind shall rejoice because of it. Yet there are those who shall wail because of it. And why is this so? Because they will not find the faith to accept my voice as a reality in this age. They have placed me in a tomb even when they have said that I am risen. They have placed me in limitation even when they have said that I am unlimited. They have done this unto me. Now I say, I shall break and shatter the fetters that bind mankind. I shall say, not only in Jerusalem, but in the heart of the world, let freedom now abide, and let the chains of mankind be broken. Let the captives go free, and let the beauty of holiness fill the heart of the earth. Men have believed and known that one day the heart of God would be revered upon this earth, that one day I would return again. Let me say unto all that the mystical knowledge of the mystical teachings of the great white brotherhood will reveal to those who have the patience to wait for it the perfection matrix of knowledge and understanding, whereby all of the mysteries of all ages shall be comprehended, because there is but one truth. Lo, I am that truth. Lo, when you affirm it with me, you are that truth. For we are made from one universal matrix. We are molded in one spirit of perfection from within. I am both elder brother and your own heart's light. I am thus the light of the world. I, Jesus, have spoken. Saint Germain. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As I come here to Jerusalem, it is to cover this city with my violet flame cape, that the mankind that dwell in this part of the earth may know what they have not known for centuries and millenniums. That is a release from many of the distressing and vicious tensions which have been generated in their consciousness simply because they have been unwilling to relinquish those feelings which they in some measure deem comfortable, when in reality they are creating more and more tensions without ever relieving the tensions which mankind has. Surely you understand tonight, as you have understood in the past, that darkness cannot become a taper which lights up the mind of man. Only light is a taper which can illumine the consciousness of all and bring them to that place where they are able to understand the law that requires humanity to call upon that law, that the fulfillment of that law be accomplished in any age and at any time. Humanity sometimes indeed play the role of a child. They do not seem to fully understand or to comprehend the natural order of manifestation. What mankind thinks within his heart surely will outpicture itself at some time or another in his life, and therefore whatever he thinks upon and dwells upon will become a fait accompli. Let mankind, then, recognize their need to purify their thoughts and feelings through attunement with the natural order of cosmic grace, which is within the heart of Christ. When men understand the nature of their holy Christ self in fuller measure, they will see that the exercise of God control is a requirement of the law. It is not enough simply that God is indeed in his heaven, as mankind say. They should also understand that he is functional here in the dimensions of form, and functional because humanity invite him to function. Here you have seen the manifestation in this city of Jerusalem of many manifestations of shrines and places mankind recognize as having existed in the historical past. There is, however, great uncertainty dwelling in the hearts of honest men as to where this or that shrine is located. For surely you can see that the historical dust, if it has settled, is certainly not a dust that stays settled for long. For mankind, in actuality, base most of their premises upon conjecture and what seems to them to be the right way. It is not important that man should discuss which spot Christ stood upon, for they should understand that Christ dwelled in this city, but more importantly still, dwells in the hearts of those men who invite him to live, to abide there. It is my desire then this night to increase the temperature of the spiritual climate in all nations and among the family of nations. I desire to see the great cosmic fires lit, and to see humanity molded and shaped. In fact, I desire to see them, in many cases, reshaped, for the multitudes are still dwelling in the tents of darkness in most of their religious application. They desire to see the light, but do not. They desire to be the light, but are not. They continue to abide in those traditional manifestations of thought and feeling which they have exercised for centuries and millenniums. Do you see, then, the great need to produce what amounts to almost a complete change in humanity's consciousness? This is why there are so many problems in the world today, because individuals are unwilling to change their consciousness. They are not happy with it, but still they will not exchange it for a conscious awareness of greater light. Perhaps it is because they do not understand where the light dwells, where the light abides. The light has been placed in the blessed receptacle of the consciousness of man, and it is the responsibility of each one who would enshrine the light, to recognize that he too is a shrine of God. Will you understand then that your bodies are the temple of God? Will you understand that God does abide within you? And if God abides within you, beloved hearts of light, then Christ abides within you. And if Christ abides within you, then from whence shall he come but from within yourselves? And as Christ comes from within yourself, are you not also then a hallowed shrine? And are you not also then a recipient of greater grace, simply because Christ abides within you? Is it not then a part of greater wisdom to welcome Christ, to expand him, to amplify his consciousness, simply by submitting your own degraded consciousness to the light of perfection? For perfection abides within you also. Yet there is in the duality of man the manifestation of those traditional thoughts and feelings which are no part of God. Would it not then be a wise thing, beloved ones, if individuals would relinquish their hold upon those vestiges and traces of darkness which have given them no comfort through the ages, but have continually recreated in the domain of thought and feeling those manifestations which are made in the similitude of the carnal mind? We today wish to stress to you, who have come to see and behold those sacred shrines, to understand that just as those shrines do exist in the sense that Christ did walk among men here in Jerusalem and the surrounding area, so then does there exist within every man's heart a little focus, a miniature focus of the New Jerusalem and the Old Jerusalem as well. The New Jerusalem in the sense that, behold, I make all things new, and the Old Jerusalem in the sense that the old traditional markings of the raising of mankind's consciousness throughout the ages has left its imprint upon the whole world without his ever having moved from his own armchair. Well then, you may say, why did we seem to approve your coming here? Well, beloved hearts of light, there is no harm done but a great deal of good. For you have made a pilgrimage into this area, and you are able to see for yourselves some of those conditions which require change, and you are able thus to participate in removing certain conditions from yourself, simply because there will be a greater impelment within yourself of the desire to release mankind from bondage into the freedom of the Christ flame. You may well say then, Christ was born 2,000 years ago. And it is so. But because you have been here, you will be able to feel with greater awareness the magnificent activities that were started in the cosmic ethers. For above this land, in the resurrection temple of Jesus and Mary, there abides a restorative faculty which can be contacted by you in your finer bodies, while you are either asleep or awake, but most specifically when the physical consciousness is sleeping, thus raising no oppositional factors whatsoever to your contact with those magnificent flames which act both centripetally and centrifugally. Do you understand how there is a simultaneous action, almost what we could call the action of the cosmic caduceus, that enables mankind to raise the wings of the mind through contacting the sacred fire temples in the etheric realms? For while mankind, if they had had their own way, would no doubt, providing they were able to summon a sense of value, have long ago marked here upon the earth the exact location of the various stations of the cross, so outlined by Roman Catholicism. At the same time, we want individuals to understand that simply because they did not have an awareness of Christ's mission and identity at the specific time in which he lived does not mean that here in this city the record was not actually made. Therefore, let all understand that just as the record was made, so it was also exalted above the plane of the physical into the etheric realm above this city. There is then a niche in this city for each sacred shrine, and the individuals who come to this city for a spiritual experience and a pilgrimage ought to ask that their consciousness be anchored in the etheric realm, where the true shrines of the Spirit are here. Let all understand, then, that those shrines which are here in the etheric realm are ready to release their burden of light into the conscious mind of all, providing the individual is willing to make the call and then stand expectantly awaiting the answer. Does not the call compel the answer? And when the answer is given, will it not be given in order to illumine you, to raise you out of the ordinary sense consciousness into greater awareness of God? I think this is true. And if this is true, then does not the responsibility fall also upon each individual monad, that he may recognize his need to make the call for his individual illumination and quickening? But if you are quickened, what will it do for the rest of the world? Beloved hearts, what happened when the Christ was raised? Did it not bless the fabric of the whole earth? So then, when you are able to make your attunement with these shrines, do you understand that it is not always necessary for individuals to be physically present? For you will be able now, once you have anchored in your consciousness a greater awareness of this place and the sacred fires that still blaze here, to carry back into your own lands those blessed experiences which you have had here, and will thus be able to recreate them at will, providing you make the necessary application. Do you not think, then, that it is a responsibility of the individual pilgrim to make this attunement, that whereas you may carry various relics and mementos back to your lands, it certainly does follow that you ought to make the attempt to carry back to your country and within your own heart the various spiritual focuses in a miniature form, for you can do this most easily without in any way detracting from the blessed radioactivity of the focuses of God that are established here. The ancient records clearly declare the markings for the consciousness of man, providing he does reach out and sustain his momentum of that which has been in former times. But surely you are aware of the fact that with all the blessings that are heaped upon your head by heaven, that you will surely experience a growth in consciousness as you continue to reach out into this land and the etheric cities that are over it. For surely you know that as in the parable of the fig tree, when Christ said, "No man shall eat of thee fruit henceforth forever," you can plainly see then that he was able to create by the words that he spoke what may be called and is an anathema. Well then, do you see how easy it is also for him or for you or for God to create and to sustain a momentum of blessedness which shall be to all people? Long ago, when Christ was born in Bethlehem, did not the song of the angels ring out over the plains of Bethlehem? Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill to men. This is our mission today. It should be yours also, regardless of what activity takes place in the world of form, regardless of mankind's desire to perform destructive activities and retaliations. Surely you are aware of the fact that heaven is not sleeping, that heaven is diligent, that heaven is maintaining, through the brotherhoods of light, a continual monitoring of human expression. with many warnings sent forth in due course of time, in order to raise mankind's consciousness to higher levels, and that he may indeed resist evil when he should. When mankind understand this activity correctly, they will understand when they should resist evil and when they should not. This is a very important activity of discernment, which when a man is able to recognize, he is able to live in greater measure according to the ascended master consciousness. Now then, surely, you are aware of the fact that the beauty of Christ's perfection is being released unto you each day, that the measure of that perfection within yourself is truly the fullness of God each day. Yet you may rightfully ask this question: why does it not manifest in a given day with all of its perfection? Simply, beloved ones, because your faith requires strengthening. When your faith is strengthened, and you are able at last to recognize that God good and Christ good is being formed within you, you will no longer feel the human pull of the senses upon your consciousness, which have a tendency to deny the virtue of the Christ resurrection that is within yourself. Instead, you will be able to recognize clearly that you are being molded in the cosmic shape of things to come, which are the icons of the Spirit and the Christ image. When these things are established within you as focuses of great light, it simply means that your consciousness is being transformed by that light. And with each transformation, there are little burnings of darkness that take place, and the dissolvement of that darkness in your consciousness, until at last you stand free and able to enter into the very spirit of the ascension, to pass through all the transcendent victories of Christ realization for yourself, that in visiting what mankind have termed the stations of the cross, they may see at last that the cross is simply a meeting between God and man. They will see then that the mediatorship of the Christ was an expression of great dimension, and that the mystic brotherhoods throughout the earth that have truly perpetuated the light of 10,000 suns, the Christ light of magnificence, which is actually within the temple of illumined mankind, are indeed perpetuating the light of the Shekinah glory within the heart of King Solomon's temple. Let all then understand that the building of the temple is a spiritual activity that must and does cover years and centuries. For individuals are born, they live for a few short years and a lifespan, and then they pass through the gate of death. Later on, they are once again restored to the world of form as step by step humanity is raised up the cosmic ladder of life and light, the cosmic ladder of loveliness, where they are able to reach forth their hands in full faith, that when they reach forth their hands, they will realize that we are extending our own to them, that touch which then results is the consummation of divine love being extended from the divine level to the earth beneath. You are divine beings, but so are all mankind. The problem then lies in the recognition of that factor. When men fail to recognize that they are divine beings, they then act and resemble tragically those things which are the carnal consciousness of the carnal mind. Ecce homo, behold the man. What is man then that thou art mindful of him? Truly, mankind hold within themselves, in the chalice of their being, a dual consciousness. Let them understand then the need to repudiate the serpentine labyrinth of human experience by the perpetual raising of the icons of light and loveliness into manifestation, that the conscious mind of Christ Jesus be indeed the activity of God within them, that their minds become imbued with His consciousness, His love, and His willingness to do the will of God, then they will indeed pass through the Gethsemane experience. They will indeed be pressed as a ripe olive, and there will come forth the distillation of the oil of the Spirit poured upon the rock, and the flame will burn with its own natural heat and consume the dross in human experience as mankind are raised into their own Christ reverence. The great tragedies of the ages, beloved hearts of light, have been mankind's failure to recognize their own Christ magnificence. For when mankind fail to recognize their own Christ magnificence, the mission of each master is rendered ineffectual for them. The beauties of spiritual experience must come to all, and when they do, it will be the fulfillment of a promise which God made long ago to the soul. Have you ever recognized, beloved hearts of light, that the soul within you has held its own silent communion with God, apart from matters of human thought and feeling? That all the time, both when you are awake and when you are sleeping, there is this communion between yourself and your divine presence. But, beloved hearts of light, it is utterly necessary that you should externalize in your consciousness the domain of divine deliverance, your own blessed freedom from fear, from doubt, and from those consuming fires that are actually of this carnal mind of man, rather than the consuming fires that are of the Spirit. For there are two types of flames, beloved ones. There are the burning flames of the world, the burning and smoking lamp which passed before Abraham, which was obscure. And also there is the clean burning flame of Christ's purity, which is a consuming flame that will indeed create that attitude of thought and feeling which makes mankind to recognize at last that he is an embryonic God, created in the divine image, and able to raise his consciousness to that point where he can faithfully accept from the hand of God and the brotherhood those necessary experiences and vestments which will enable him to progress spiritually, step by step, into the very center of his own God-given gift of divinity. When this is true, then the purposes of the Christ are fulfilled in that individual. And he, having followed also in the footsteps of the masters, having walked the way which they have walked, will find in the ritual of his deliverance the joy of God that is eternal, thus adding this blessing to the world's hope, that the light of hope may never be extinguished, that the joy of freedom may flood the cup of the world, and that the consciousness of all shall be enabled willingly and graciously to enter into the full acceptance of the reality of the sons of God who have walked among men, that others may also follow in their footsteps. I thank you.